In today's video, I've got a triad workout for you to try, which is a practical exercise that you can apply in many different ways and variations, which is going to help you gain your familiarity with triads and your ability to recall them as quickly as possible. If you'd like to download the Guitar Pro tab for all of the exercises that I share throughout this video, plus a bunch of bonus exercises for you to try in different keys, you'll be able to find that on my Patreon, which is linked in the description below. And this video does assume that you're already somewhat familiar with your triad shapes. If you're not, or at some point throughout this video you get a little bit lost, then please feel free to check out my Essential Theory for Guitarists course, which is also linked in the description below. And with that said, let's get cracking. Okay, so in this video we're going to be sticking with some basic major chords just to keep it super simple and portray the idea that I want to portray, and then you can obviously excel that yourself and create your own chord progressions and different variations. So we're going to be using C, G, D, and D. Okay, that's our 4-bar progression. And we're going to be playing along to these chord shapes by using some of the triad shapes on the bottom string set and the second string set. And again, of course, as you get used to this, you can expand onto the other string sets. But just to keep this video to the point, we're going to be predominantly using that bottom string set. Now let's go ahead and see what kind of triads we have available on that bottom string set. Now ideally we want to keep the triads as close as we can together. So let's see how we get on. Immediately with this C shape, you should be able to see a root position triad here at the bottom. Next up with our G chord, once again within that bar chord we have a first inversion shape here starting on your major third. And then lastly for your D chord, that should be fairly obvious since that's just your open D shape, which is your second inversion triad. So we've got now to keep this interesting along with the chords, we want to create some kind of picking pattern. So perhaps we could just go Now we're going to broaden on that. We've got a set of triads in one area of the neck, but now let's move up to the next available inversions of these triads just to expand our familiarity here and the exercise that we're going to try. So for the next chord here, we start off with this first inversion C major triad, okay, which comes from this bar chord shape. And then we have a second inversion G major triad starting on that 5th degree there, and then finally a first inversion D major triad. Okay, so once again. Okay, nice and easy. So we've covered 2 sections of the neck there so far. There's one more section to complete all of the inversions available on that bottom string set. So again, we're going to find the next available inversion from here, which comes up to here, which is your second inversion of C major. And then we have your G major root position here coming from this bar chord shape. And then lastly, this first inversion here, which again comes from this major bar chord shape. And again, all together, let's follow all of that down now. So descending, we're going to go C, G, D. C, G, D, C, G, D. Okay, so that's the kind of idea that we're going for here. So hopefully you're familiar with all of those triads. Now let's begin to make this melodic, jumping back to the idea of playing these bar chord shapes, or these power chord shapes even, along to a metronome. So I'm going to do that now as a bass ground and then play some of these triads on top of these chords in an ascending fashion, which will give us exercise number 1. So that was a great start to exercise number 1 that I want to share with you. Now let's begin to introduce some of the shapes on the string set above, for example. So on the very last bar, where we would have C, G, D, and then D again, rather than just repeat the same triad shape, we're going to do an ascending run or a descending run on the next string set. So for example, we could go before that leads us up to the next string set. And then again, at the end of this one, we could go. And what we have there are just 3 D major triad shapes on that second string set. And then for the last bar, we need to descend back down here. So we could do a descending pattern. Perhaps we could go. That sounds quite cool. So I'm ascending the root position here, sliding down to the second inversion, and then sliding down to the first inversion. But since we don't have time to play 3 notes, I just pick these 2. And that leads us nicely back to. So, consider that exercise 2. Let's give that a try now and see what it sounds like. And there you go. That should start to get you familiar with some of the triad shapes on the next string set. And of course, you can expand on this idea yourself and start implementing triad shapes from other string sets, or maybe adding one of the other chords onto the second string set. Now there are 2 more exercises that I want to share with you in this video. The last one is my favorite, so stick around for that. But just before we do, I just want to go through another variation of what we've just done. But this one here is going to alternate between 2 areas of the neck quite quickly. So what I mean by that is we're going to start off by going from this root position C shape. And then we're going to zoom up to the first inversion. So you'd have. And then you're going to repeat the same with the next chord, which is G. And then the last one. And why don't we just round that off a bit more by, rather than repeat the same phrase twice, we can use the shapes above again. Okay. And then you're going to do the same with the second area of the neck. We're going to connect that one to the third. And then we're going to connect the third to the first again, but just an octave higher. So here's what that would sound like all together. So that kind of exercise is going to get you moving around the neck quite quickly, and it's going to become particularly challenging when you change keys and introduce new chords. Remember, this is just a template for you to work from, but I do want you to expand on this and introduce your own chord progressions, introducing minor triad shapes, and even coming up with your own ideas on different string sets. Now the very last idea that I want to share with you is a very cool idea that I enjoy experimenting with myself, which involves a lot of harmonizing. Now this is super simple, there's not really much theory behind this other than that you're going to play the triad shapes in one area of the neck, descending, at the same time as playing the triad shapes in the next area of the neck, descending. So I'm going to play back exercise number 1 and play along with that, but starting from the second position of the neck rather than the first. So there are all of the exercises that I want to share with you. As I've been continuously saying, it's important that you start off with this and use this as a nudge to come up with your own ideas and variations of this. Perhaps you could start off with the same chord progression, but rather than repeat that D twice, perhaps you could substitute the fourth bar with an A minor instead to get you moving even more and introducing some of those A minor triad shapes across the bottom string set. And throughout each of these exercises, I'm simply just playing eighth notes, but perhaps you want to come up with your own melody to make it sound even more musical. So there you have it. I hope this will inspire you to create your own variations and own patterns and sequences based on these examples and ideas that I've shared with you. This is a really great thing to try. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, it's going to help you massively with your familiarity of triads across the neck and actually being able to practically use them in your own playing. So that's all from me today. I will see you in the next video.